The dawn in downtown Seattle broke with a soft amber haze, spilling through the wide floor-to-ceiling windows of Harper Lane's 8th-floor apartment. The faint hum of a street violinist drifted up from below every Sunday morning, weaving into the rhythm of her fiercely independent life. At 29, Harper had sculpted this space into a reflection of her relentless grit, a sanctuary where every detail, from the navy linen couch to a framed snapshot of her solo hike in Olympic National Park, bore her unmistakable signature. 7 years of grinding, extra shifts at her renewable energy startup, late-night budget meals, and evenings slumped over her laptop, had earned her this haven. No handouts, no co-signers, just her unyielding resolve to stand on her own. But that hard-fought refuge was about to face an ambush from the people she loved most. In a tense family gathering at her parents' cedar-shingled home in Mercer Island, where her mom and dad, Gregory and Ellen Pierce, had rooted themselves for 28 years, a single sentence upended her world. Harper arrived 15 minutes late on purpose, a subtle defiance, a quiet signal that she was no longer the pliant daughter who nodded at every command. Her father, Gregory, greeted her at the door with a stiff pat on the back, his face a mask of obligation. Her mother, Ellen, was in the kitchen, fussing over her signature herb-roasted chicken. Her younger sister, Lila Brooks, 26, radiant and restless, was sprawled on the sectional, thumbing through her phone as if the room were empty. Lila, ever the magnet for drama, was reeling from a breakup with a boyfriend she'd dated for barely 6 months. The dining room was a portrait of precision, crisp white tablecloth, wine glasses aligned like soldiers, a centerpiece that felt more curated than lived in. Harper sensed a script unfolding, one she hadn't been invited to rehearse. 20 minutes into dinner, her father set his knife and fork down with a deliberate clink, clearing his throat, the Pierce family's unspoken cue for a bombshell. Lila needs a place to stay for a bit, he announced, his tone as flat as a corporate memo. We've talked it over. She'll move into your apartment for a while. Harper's grip tightened on her glass, her pulse hammering. My apartment? She echoed, her voice steady but edged with disbelief. Ellen chimed in, as if the decision were already carved in stone. You've got that second bedroom. Harper, you're always traveling for work. That office of yours is just sitting empty. No one had asked her. Lila glanced up from her phone, flashing a coy smile. It's just for a few months. Harper, till I get my head straight. Mom and Dad's place is way too cramped. And your spot's perfect. It's a no-brainer, right? A no-brainer for who? Harper shot back, her smile brittle, masking the crack forming in her composure. If she could have seen her reflection, she'd have looked fractured. My office isn't a guest suite. And I don't recall signing up for this. Gregory sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. Ellen flipped open her planner, already scheduling Lila's move for the following weekend. We're family, Ellen said, her voice low but firm. Families step up for each other. Harper pushed back, her words measured but sharp. Why couldn't Lila crash in their living room? Or stay at Aunt Maureen's guest cottage in Bellevue? Or rent her own place? Like Harper had done a decade ago when her parents told her to grow up and figure it out. But her questions hit a wall. Lila rolled her eyes, muttering that Harper was being dramatic. Gregory grumbled that she was blowing things out of proportion. The air grew thick, pressing against her chest like a vice. Harper stood, her chair scraping against the hardwood. Temporary or not, it's still an invasion without my consent, she said, her voice cutting through the silence. No one responded. She didn't wait for them to. She walked out, the door clicking shut behind her, and drove back to Seattle with only the whistle of wind through her cracked window for company. The weight in her chest felt like a slab of granite, cold, unyielding. No one had banished her, but the sting of exile was all too familiar. Growing up in the Pierce household, Harper's role had been etched in stone, the dependable middle child, the one who never made waves. She'd mended her own jeans in high school, filled out FAFSA forms alone, and worked weekends at a coffee shop when her allowance was cut off because she was old enough to earn her own way. Meanwhile, her older sister, Nora Pierce, 33, was the family's golden child, a former art major who'd switched programs twice. Taken a gap year to find her muse, and still landed a lavish graduation bash at a vineyard in Walla Walla. Harper had been the one backstage, taping up decorations and testing the sound system, while Nora soaked up the spotlight. Then there was her younger brother, Owen Pierce, 23, who'd bounced between 3 colleges and still hadn't graduated. His every misstep was a growth opportunity, every failure cushioned by their parents' support. Last summer, he'd flunked a course for missing a deadline. Yet Gregory wired him cash to clear his head. Harper didn't resent them, not anymore. But each time she was asked to surrender her space, her time, her life, it was hard not to feel like a piece of furniture in the Pierce family home. Functional, reliable, and utterly invisible. Back in her apartment, Harper flipped on the lights and stood in the kitchen doorway, her fingers grazing the frame of her Olympic Park photo. No one in her family had ever asked about it, or why she lived alone. Why she never brought a partner home, or what it took to climb to her role as a project manager at a clean energy firm. She opened her laptop, pulled up a blank note, and typed, "I am not obligated to carry others just because I'm not the one falling apart." The words felt like a vow, a line drawn in the sand. In her office, the room Ellen had dismissed as wasted space, Harper kept her treasures. A vision board for a conservation project she was pitching. A shelf of technical manuals. And trinkets that reminded her she was more than the family's default fixer. The thought of Lila sprawling across a bed Harper had built, scrolling her phone under lights Harper had chosen, made her stomach churn, not out of spite, but because she was done sacrificing. She opened her email, typed, "Policy on temporary guests," in the subject line, and sent it to her building manager. It was a small act, but it felt like planting a flag in her own territory. Harper had learned one truth in the Pierce household. Silence wasn't strength, it was surrender. And she was through surrendering. As she shut her laptop, the city lights glittered outside. A constellation of possibility. Her apartment stood quiet, waiting. For the first time, she felt ready to fight for it, not with anger, but with the clarity of someone who finally knew her own worth. The Seattle skyline shimmered under a drizzle as Harper Lane sat at her kitchen counter. Her lease agreement spread out like a battle map. At 29, she'd fought tooth and nail for her 8th-floor apartment in downtown, a sanctuary carved from 7 years of sweat, sacrifice, and solitude. Now, her family's attempt to invade that space, announcing her sister Lila Brooks would move in without her consent, had ignited a fire in her. Harper wasn't about to let her hard-won haven become a casualty of family obligation. With a pen in hand, she scoured Section 6.2 of the lease. Long-term guests exceeding 14 consecutive days or 20 non-consecutive days in 6 months require written approval from management. Violations may result in immediate lease termination. The words were clinical, but to Harper, they were a shield. She wasn't just reacting, she was strategizing. Harper emailed her building manager, Clara Voss, posing as someone planning a short-term guest arrangement during a work trip. "I want to ensure full compliance," she wrote, attaching a scanned copy of the lease with the guest clause highlighted. Clara's reply came within hours. A guest declaration form, a request for the guest's ID, and a temporary addendum. Everything needed to be above board. No room for family sentiment to blur the lines. But Harper needed more than paperwork. She needed control. Enter Caleb Reed, a colleague from her clean energy firm's Portland office. At 31, Caleb was dependable, tidy, and in a bind. His condo was undergoing emergency mold remediation, and he needed a place to crash for 2 weeks. Harper texted him, "Still looking for a short-term spot? My apartment's open for 2 weeks. Legal temp agreement. Just house sitting. Interested?" Caleb called back in 15 minutes. His voice calm but grateful. "You're a lifesaver, Harper. Can we meet to go over details?" They met that evening at a coffee shop near her building. Caleb arrived punctual, in a pressed button-down, with a copy of his ID and a willingness to sign her drafted agreement. Harper laid it out. "This is about keeping my space secure. No uninvited visitors. No exceptions. If anyone shows up, You're the authorized guest. And that's the only story. Caleb nodded, no questions asked, and signed with a steady hand. Harper scanned the documents, emailed them to Clara with a precise check-in, out schedule, and felt a knot in her chest loosen. Her fortress was locked down. But she wasn't done. Harper installed a discreet motion-activated camera in her living room, angled at the front door. The device sent live feeds and alerts to her phone, not to spy on Caleb, but to guard against the Pierce family's assumption that her home was theirs to claim. She tested the app, watching the empty doorway flicker on her screen, and exhaled. For the first time, she felt like the one holding the keys to her own life. Friday night, Harper packed a duffel with essentials, her laptop, a few books, a necklace her late grandmother had given her, and stashed them in her office's secure locker. Then she drove 3 hours to Cannon Beach, Oregon, checking into a quiet inn where the roar of the Pacific drowned out the static in her mind. She needed distance, not just from her family, but from the version of herself that had always said yes. Saturday morning, her phone buzzed with 3 motion alerts. Heart racing, Harper opened the camera feed. The first clip showed her father, Gregory Pierce, knocking sharply on her apartment door, a cardboard box under his arm. Her mother, Ellen, stood beside him, clutching a tote bag stuffed with linens. Lila trailed behind, arms crossed, her oversized scarf a shield against the world. The second clip captured Caleb opening the door, casual in a hoodie and jeans, blocking the entry. He said something. Harper couldn't hear what, but Gregory's jaw tightened, and Ellen's hand flew to her chest. Lila pulled out her phone, typing furiously. The final clip showed Caleb holding up the signed guest agreement, pointing to his name. A building security guard appeared, exchanged words, and escorted the Pierces away. Their shoulders were rigid, Ellen's grip on her tote white-knuckled. Harper saved the footage, her breath steadying. She'd won the first battle. Her phone lit up with notifications. 8 missed calls from Ellen, 6 from Gregory, and a flood of texts from Lila. Ellen's first message read, "Harper, this is unacceptable. You've humiliated us." Attached was a photo of Lila standing beside a rented U-Haul. Eyes read, captioned, "This is how you treat your sister?" Gregory's text was curt, "You're embarrassing the entire family. Call me now." Lila's messages were a novella of guilt. "I'm homeless tonight because of you. Mom's crying. Dad's furious. All I needed was a little help. Why is that so hard?" Harper set her phone face down on the inn's weathered nightstand and stepped onto the balcony. The salt air stung her cheeks, sharper than the accusations piling up in her inbox. Lila didn't stop there. By noon, she'd posted an Instagram story, a selfie in her car, makeup flawless, with the caption, "Betrayed by family when I'm already broken. Thanks to the one who cares." The post racked up 47 likes in an hour, with comments from friends decrying Harper's cruelty. Harper screenshot it, sent it to her best friend, Maya Chen, a 30-year-old software engineer in San Francisco. Maya's reply was instant. "They're not after truth. They want an audience." Harper muted Lila's account, along with her parents. She'd watch, but she wouldn't engage. Their words no longer had a claim on her. Back in Seattle, Harper had started therapy with Dr. Nora Kessler, a recommendation from Maya after the family dinner fiasco. Dr. Kessler's office, tucked in a Fremont brownstone with sage green walls and abstract art, was neither sterile nor overly warm, a space that demanded honesty. In their first session, Harper recounted the apartment ambush. Dr. Kessler leaned back, her gaze piercing. "When you said no, how did they react?" Harper gave a bitter laugh. "Like I'd committed treason. Selfish. Dramatic. You name it." Dr. Kessler nodded. "Do you often describe your life as something you endure?" The question landed like a stone in still water. Harper didn't answer. She didn't need to. The truth was in every time she'd bitten her tongue. Every holiday she'd spent cooking while others lounged. Every moment she'd shrunk to make room for someone else's chaos. Driving back from Cannon Beach, Harper stopped at a roadside diner, letting the rain patter on her jacket as she sipped black coffee. She declined a call from Ellen, the vibration of her phone a fleeting jolt. It wasn't betrayal, It was choice. Maya's words echoed, saying no isn't selfish. It's survival. Harper was starting to believe it. The following week, Ellen emailed, "Can you handle Easter brunch like last year? We're counting on your quiche." Harper stared at the screen, remembering last Easter, 12-hour workdays. Then an all-nighter prepping food while her family debated politics over wine. She typed back, "I'm not hosting this year. I need a break. Wishing you all a great gathering." Her finger hovered over send. Heart pounding. Then clicked. The rush of adrenaline felt like sprinting up a hill, exhausting but exhilarating. Lila texted next. "Mom's freaking out. What's wrong with you? It's just one day." Harper didn't reply. Maya came over that weekend, bringing takeout from their favorite dim sum spot. Sprawled on Harper's rug, Maya listened as Harper recounted the week. "You're not changing," Maya said, her voice warm but firm. "You're just stepping out of a cage they built for you." Harper glanced around her apartment, the soft glow of her Edison bulbs. The bookshelf she'd organized by color. The woven throw from a trip to Taos. Nothing had shifted, yet the space felt bigger, like it was finally hers alone. A month later, Harper arranged a meeting at a Ballard cafe. Neutral ground with exposed brick and the hum of an espresso machine. She arrived early, ordered a flat white, and placed her phone face down, a silent vow to stay grounded. Gregory and Ellen arrived together, their faces etched with restraint. Lila followed, clutching a chai latte, her usual polish replaced by a raw uncertainty. No one hugged. Harper waited a beat, then spoke. "I'm not here to fight. I'm here to say what I should have said years ago." Deciding Lila would move into my place without asking wasn't just disrespectful, it erased my right to choose. Ellen frowned. "You live alone, Harper. That spare room's empty." Lila needed help. "Isn't that reasonable?" Harper's voice stayed even. "Reasonable to who?" "I was told, not asked." Like always, Gregory cut in, his tone clipped. "This is family, not a legal dispute." Harper turned her cup, her gaze steady. "Family doesn't mean you get a free pass to my life. I've said yes too long. Even when it broke me." Lila shifted, eyes down. "I thought you were okay with it. Mom said you were too busy to answer." Harper met her gaze. "Did you ever ask me, Lila? Or was it easier to assume?" Silence stretched, heavy but honest. Ellen's hands twisted her scarf. "We're not solving anything by blaming." Harper leaned forward. "I've been the solution since I was 13, babysitting cousins. Giving up my bed. Paying my own way while you funded Owen's third college try. I'm not limitless." Gregory's shoulders sagged, a rare crack in his stoicism. "Maybe we leaned on you too much." "It wasn't intentional." Harper nodded. "Intent doesn't erase the hurt. I can't keep carrying what you assume I can." Lila spoke, her voice small. "I'm sorry. I didn't check with you. I just expected you'd say yes." Like always, Ellen exhaled. "I wanted you girls to be close. I should have asked. But I was scared you'd say no." Harper didn't soften, but she didn't strike. "Then you chose to force it. That's not love, it's control." Gregory broke the quiet, his voice softer. "We need to rethink how we treat each other. From Lila moving into all of it." Lila pulled a folded paper from her bag, a list of rental listings. "I'm viewing a place tomorrow. If you guys can help with the deposit, I'll handle the rest." Gregory nodded. Ellen gave a tight smile. Harper stood after 90 minutes. No embraces. But the air wasn't suffocating. Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the streets glossy under streetlights. 3 weeks later, Lila texted a photo of her new Belltown studio. Standing in an empty living room with a key raised triumphantly. "Signed the lease myself." Mom chipped in a bit. "But it's my name on it. Thanks for pushing me." Harper replied, "Proud of you." Simple, no frills, but true. Ellen started calling before holidays, asking instead of assigning. At Thanksgiving, she said, "If you're not up for dessert, I'll order something. Any ideas?" Harper offered to bring a pie, her choice. Not a mandate. Gregory's calls grew brief, respectful. "How's the solar project? Need a second eye on the contract?" One evening, he visited Seattle for work and invited Harper for coffee. Over lattes, he admitted. I thought you leaving home was a phase. Now I see you were braver than most of us. Harper sipped her drink, asking, did you ever feel trapped by your role? He didn't answer, just nodded, his hand resting on the table. Harper's life settled into a new rhythm. Grounded by boundaries she no longer apologized for. Each unanswered call was a choice, not avoidance. Each request Ellen phrased as a question instead of a demand lightened the weight she'd carried. Her limits didn't fracture her family, they redefined it. Drawing lines where respect could grow. One evening, Harper stood at her apartment door, key in hand, the silence inside unfamiliarly peaceful. No one waited to claim her space. No voices demanded her sacrifice. She'd built a home, not just for herself, but for the woman she was becoming. One who knew that real love sometimes begins with a well-timed no.